So, hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. And I'm fucking pumped to be here again. Also because of the book that we're going through today, or that we will going through today, which is Propaganda by Edward Bernays, which is, I think, a totally great book. It's not too long, so maybe we will finish this actually today. Which probably might be quite interesting to see, or quite be great, because just having something that's pretty quick and pretty new as well, I hope at least, is totally something great. Just during or between just really big book summaries like the Charisma book that I was going through for quite a lot of time. So therefore, just having it a little bit changed up is quite great. So this is the cover. For all the people that are on the video or on YouTube right now, for all the podcast listeners, it's basically a hand pointing towards you with propaganda on top of it, and beneath it there is standing by Edward Bernays. But yeah, so this is the book that we are going to go through today. I am now to really just kind of explain my whole situation. So actually I only slept like 4 hours this night, which is totally something you should not do. And I was also talking a little bit about it in the vlog of yesterday. So I'm actually trying to vlog every single day. I'm not thinking like I'm doing it in quite a manner that a lot of people are doing. So I'm quite not just showing my whole day, because the problem is that my whole day or just every day quite is the same, because I'm like 40 hours a week in school, and in school there's not much to film, or at least I do not want to film there, which I think basically is understandable. But I really always want to just give you something, or always want to give you just a little thought, or just something you can think about, and something that might just kind of change you in some positive way, hopefully. And I think you can totally see that my right eye and probably my left eye as well are pretty red, which is also because I'm just quite sitting a lot in front of the computer and in front of screens in general, and especially if you aren't quite sleeping as much as you should be, this is getting a real problem. And so I would really suggest you, even though, as I was actually saying yesterday, it is quite hard to actually suggest something that you yourself aren't doing, because it doesn't make any sense, because I'm just suggesting it to you that you shouldn't work as much, but I'm still doing it. And this is the problem that I'm always having, unfortunately. But yeah, so Propaganda, the summary and the review in PDF, so you can actually somehow download it as a PDF. I do not know where, maybe only for the premium members. But if I haven't mentioned, I'm on the powermoves.com website, which is fairly great website. I pretty much love it because there's so much great book summaries on it, and they're formatted just really great, and you can go through them just pretty easily, which is, I think, one of the most important things if you're just having something like a book summary site, because a lot of people do just have an endless text on it, one singular endless text, which is totally something you're not quite pumped about going through. But this is something different. But yeah, so the title is Propaganda by Edward Bernays, which is actually, or who is actually the nephew of Sigmund Freud, which is basically a really, if you don't know him, a really famous psychologist, and he just really changed a lot this topic, and in terms of the science behind it and whatsoever. So he's just a great person. Bernays himself is also a great person, and I think we'll go through a little bit of a biography of himself, hopefully, because he did quite a lot of amazing things. And the actual thing is that my teacher in school that I'm having or that is teaching me in communication design, also was talking about this book, and I think he pretty much liked it. I do not actually know if I read it or something. I haven't yet, so therefore I'm pretty pumped to go through it. But yeah, and the genre is history, even though I wouldn't say it's history. The publisher is lulu.com, so like Lulu LU. And the release date is actually the 26th of December 2017, which is totally something I'm not quite sure about, because I think there's definitely an older version of it. So the first version is probably from 1968 or something, or 1980s, something like, definitely in the 90s. So 19 something, definitely. And it has only 124 pages. But yeah. So Propaganda by Edward Bernays explains how those in power use public communication to sway and control the masses. It's aged and some claims are wrong or unscientific, yet I am astonished at how many golden nuggets of wisdom are scattered in this huge classic of persuasion and manipulation. Propaganda is to persuasion or to persuasion and manipulation, like the Prince is to power and power moves. The Prince is actually also one of the books that I really have to go through, I think, because it seems to be pretty fucking great. Even though I do really have to say, because I was so pumped about it and I was so quite thinking about it quite often, and I've always been like, okay, no, this isn't a book that I'm willing to go through, because only because of the title, and because I've just only saw it in terms of being like fiction, and I quite do not wanted to present fiction on this channel or on this podcast, even though it doesn't make any fucking sense, as long as the information, as long as the knowledge is good in the book, or what you can get out of the book is great. It doesn't matter if it's fiction or non-fiction. Even though I do have to say, I think non-fiction in general is great for the masses, in terms of actually getting knowledge out of it, because they just say, okay, do this and that, or this is great and this is not great, or this is what you should do and this is what you not should do, or shouldn't do actually. And with the fiction, you totally have to just pretty much filter itself or yourself, and this is, I think, one of the problems, quote unquote problems. But yeah, so I definitely think we'll go through the Prince, even though I've looked at it today actually, because I was interested in it. This is what I actually wanted to say before. But I thought, this is not something that I would suggest. This is not something that I would like to tell you. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll just, change up my mind and do it anyways. But the bullet summary. Democracy and mass literacy requires the use of propaganda by the elites to channel the masses in the right direction. Most people are already influenced and swayed by propaganda without even realizing it, and businesses play the propaganda game the same way politicians do. Don't trust their philanthropic gestures, might be PR. And that's definitely true, because I think a lot of philanthropists, I think they're called, even though I don't know. I think talking about being someone who just donates a lot to charity is definitely something than being a philanthropist, at my point of view, or I think and I hope. Because I think the philanthropists are actually donating a pretty lot of money, and just regular donators aren't just donating that much. And I also think that the philanthropists, I think this is also, or only actually in terms of what this word actually means, but I get what he means. It's totally true that a lot will do it only because of PR and only because it's good for their either personal brand, or also not only the personal brand, and also their actual brand. It totally makes sense, It totally makes sense, and it always comes up to actually how you're doing it. And the propaganda summary. Edward Bernays wrote Propaganda in 1928. He mixes social science, the psychology of manipulation, and public relation. Edward Bernays is actually an Austrian-American author. So he's actually Austrian, which is definitely kind of great to hear. Sometimes actually, it's funny, because a lot of psychologists or people who are just into psychology and the social science and whatsoever, like Edward is, they're quite a lot from Austria, I would say. At least two. Viktor Frankl, that you might know because I've featured his book Man's Search for Meaning on this channel as well, which is definitely a great book, and which was actually one of the books that I actually listened to as an audiobook, and it was great. It was totally great. Even though I have to say, I downloaded it, so I didn't buy it, which is totally something that I don't do anymore. So I also don't just read books that I've downloaded somewhere anymore, because it doesn't feel good for me, because it feels like for me I shouldn't do this. But still, it was a pretty great book, even though I have to say the audiobook version might be a little bit complicated, quote unquote, or just a little too fast, or it comes up to which version you were listening to. But mine was fairly old, I think, and so therefore the language they used, or the speaker used, and the way he spoke was quite old, I would say, and this probably was a little bit more difficult for me to just understand than it would have been when he would have talked normally, or something like this. But what is propaganda? Bernays defines propaganda as such. Modern propaganda is a consistent, enduring effort to create or shape events to influence the relations of the public to an enterprise, idea, or group. Propaganda is the rich man's tool. Universal suffrage and education are a threat, or treat? No, it's a threat to the aristocracy. And the what the freaking hell? The bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie is basically the workers. It is actually a word I think they used back in the what was it called? Soviet Union, actually. So I think there's the kind of origin, I don't know. So it's the bourgeoisie and the people with power. The minority protected their interests with the use of mass media. With carefully planned and crafted communication, they get the common people to support their policies and ideas. Bernays says, propaganda is the executive arm of the invisible government. Totally, because propaganda is definitely something that works quite subconsciously, or something that's quite invisible. Yeah, as he already says. Universal literacy didn't liberate people. I love this paragraph. Universal literacy was supposed to educate the common man to control his environment. Once he could read and write, he would have a mind to fit to rule. So ran the democracy doctrine. But instead of a mind, universal literacy has given him rubber stamps inked with advertising slogans and trivialities of the tabloids and the platitudes of history, but quite innocent of original thought. Actually, I always have a little bit problems with thought and though, and all these th words that quite look the same, are completely pronounced differently, but yeah. Irrational creatures who think they are rational. I was impressed to read what a good grasp the author had of psychology and the human mind. This passage, for example, had me thinking that Bernays was way ahead of his time, modified for brevity. Whatever brevity is, it is actually spelled B, so just B, not P, but B, R-E-V-I-T-Y, so V-I-T-Y. A man sits in his office deciding what stocks to buy. Believing his purchase is rational, in actual fact his judgment is a melange, whatever it is, M-E, like E with a kind of apostrophe on it, whatever it is actually called, L-A-N-G-E, of impressions stamped on his mind by outside influences with unconsciously control his thought. He buys a certain railroad stock because it was in the headlines yesterday, and hence it is the one which comes most prominently to his mind, because he, a pleasant recollecting of a good dinner or one of its fast trains, because it has a liberal labor policy, a reputation for honesty, because he has been told that J.P. Morgan owns some of its shares. That's totally right. And I do think that we all make totally such decisions because we think like, okay, this is only because we are so intelligent and smart, and we thought like, this is what I'm going to take because, these other things aren't working that much and whatsoever. But at the end, we really get influenced, whether by ourselves, which is totally something that I'm quite interested in, and I think quite amazing that we actually can just really influence and manipulate ourselves so strongly that we actually make decisions that we know aren't good for us, which is totally fucked up. But the thing is, just knowing it makes you better at it and makes you better at actually recognizing it. So therefore, once you do just make a decision, just ask, is this decision actually because this certain option is the best, or is it because I think it is the best? Because often we clearly can see by just quite trying and going through different scenarios that one or the other option is just quite really shit. But we still just often take one option or choose one option that we think or we want actually to be true. And this is it. We just want it to be true. And this is actually something that I read and I learned through going through one of these summaries. I unfortunately don't know which one it was, but I think it's actually true because I often think, and I've experienced it myself, that I take options or choices that actually aren't the best because I think, I don't know, I maybe want it to be like this, or I think, or somebody else told me, or whatever. There's such a lot of factors and such a lot of reasons why this actually happened. But at the end, it wasn't just the best option I could have taken, But the problem is, or the just quite solution is, always basing your ideas options and decisions on your values and or goals. Because if you're just doing this, you will always be benefiting your goals and your values. If you're just really doing it, you can totally say like, okay, I'm going to do it, but at the end you will just take something because you like it or whatever. Yeah. Quite interesting, and I haven't been talking about it quite for a long time. And there were some episodes, I think 2 months ago or something, that I was quite talking about this singular thing, pretty much every single episode. Propaganda leverages authority figures. This paragraph made me think Edward Bernays was a genius. The salesmanship would reiterate innumerable times in full-page advertisements. Eat more bacon because it is cheap, because it is good, because it gives you reserve energy. The neo salesmanship understanding the group, the neo salesmanship, understanding the group structure of society or society actually, and principles of mass psychology would first ask, who is it that influences the eating habits of the world? The answer obviously is the physicians. The new salesman will then suggest to physicians to say publicity that it is wholesome to eat bacon. And that's totally true. Because I think it has something to do with trust. We trust in all these physicians, and we definitely not trust every singular brand. The problem is it just takes a little bit of time until we actually trust all these brands, and then we just buy their products and buy whatever. And this is actually something that was shown to me by my future boss, because I'm just taking in an internship in the summer holidays actually for 1 month at an graphic design agency and also PR agency. And he was telling me one singular example, which was totally great, I thought. It was really great. And the thing is, it is so obvious often. It is often so obvious, but it totally makes sense. And this is the great thing. I'm going to explain it to you. There are 2 companies or 2 agencies. Both have the same skills and both have quite the same people. Just it's something like, an experiment that's not quite real. So both agencies, which both have quite the same employers, the same pricing, which is totally important. I underline it just by saying it. So they have the same pricing whatsoever. So they're quite the same. The only thing is that one of these agencies actually work together with one of the customers or the customer that the whole scenario is all about. One of these agencies actually worked with them already. The thing then is, even though they have the same skills and they have the same pricing and the same people and the same time management, everything is the same. The only thing is that the customer is actually trusting more this person that he or she, or quite it, so the company as a customer, actually also worked or already worked before with. And it has only to do with trust. Yeah, it definitely has also to do with, okay, did they do a great job or didn't they do? But the thing is, they just trust them. And even if they haven't been just working with them before, they just need trust in one of these agencies and just more for one than the other. And this just makes the sale, quote unquote sale, and or just something else, or they just will take them as a client, or they just want them to work for the client because they trust one of these agencies. Even though they have the same pricing, the same people, the same everything, it is only about trust. And it makes sense to me, because if you're not trusting someone, you will definitely take the other option, or no option, you go away. And I think this is quite interesting. Even though it sounds so obvious for me, so quite right now, I quite feel a little bit dumb for saying this actually and pointing it out. So like, I found a new idea and whatsoever. But I do think it is actually one of the things that often people don't think about. This is actually a great example. So propaganda is the politician's game. The masses don't have any great wisdom. They follow their leaders and those who are better placed at influencing and pursuing them. Writes Bernays, given your present political conditions under which every office seeker must cater to the vote of the masses, that only means by which the born leader can lead is the expert use of propaganda. It just always have to be in terms of what words you're gonna use. You can say propaganda. You can also say, I think, skills, because actually being a leader also involves just being like influencing and being persuading or whatever it is pronounced. Totally makes sense. So it definitely could be propaganda. Definitely could be something else. Could be another word. But yeah. And big business copied it. And this was another genius realization by Edward Bernays, that businesses have been more and more employing propaganda tactics, and that big businessmen are more and more acting a performance on a public stage, not out of genuine beliefs, but to drive sales. So, and that big businessmen are more and more acting a performance on a public stage, not out of genuine beliefs, but to drive sales. And this is actually totally something that you can see nowadays as well. I do believe that these people who actually have a personal brand, and they are a brand themselves, whether it's Beyonce, whether it's just every single YouTuber basically, or whether it's something like a model, all these people have their own personal brand, and because of this personal brand, all these people also have perfumery and hotels and underwear and quite everything. And I do see this as well. This just shows me, okay, a lot of people, a lot of big quote-unquote business people, not necessarily because, as I said, models and rappers and musicians and, whatever, and rappers are musicians, yeah, so that you don't get me wrong. But I do see it, and I do think it quite works, because I don't know, actually. I just believe in it. I just believe in the people who actually, public figures, get more richer and get more sales and whatsoever than the people you know nothing about. I don't know why. I just have to think about it, I think. I have to just really think about this before maybe he actually explains it. Let's see. Actually, to really throw that in, propaganda is actually a word that came from the Catholic is it the Catholic Church, like, or Christianity? You know, the religion. The religion is actually from the religion, basically, and from the church, which was totally something that I quite found interesting. But it makes sense because the church or the Catholics or Christianity or whatever it is, I don't know. I don't quite know. But they actually were the first people who actually used propaganda, or they actually just really influenced the masses, or really influenced quite a lot of people, and or persuaded them that they actually should believe in something that might or might not exist actually. And this is quite interesting, and it to some degree makes sense, but it's definitely quite interesting that it actually came not from just some of the marketers or really big businessmen or something, just from the church. He says, edited for brevity, so it's brevity, actually the same word that I was just spelling before already. The successful businessman today apes the politician. He has adopted the glitter and the ballyhoo of the campaign with slideshow annual dinners that are a compendium of speeches, flags, state lines, and pseudo-democracy, or pseudo or whatever, slightly tinged with paternalism. It's paternalism. Corporations manipulate public and employees. Propaganda might as well be the very first great career advice text. Edward Bernays was way ahead in his understanding of the Machiavellian games that HR and bosses play. What are HR? Whatever. On occasion, he doles out honors to employees, much as the Republic of classic times rewarded its worthy citizens. But these are merely the slideshows, the drums of big businesses, by which it builds up an image of public service and of honorary service. Business stimulates loyal enthusiasm on the part of directors, the workers, the stockholders, and the consumer public. It is one of the methods by which big business performs its function of making and selling products to the public. But the real work and campaign of business consists of intensive study of the public, the manufacture of products based on this study, and exhaustive use of every means of reaching the public. And yep, couldn't agree more, which is actually a sentence from the author of this article, and I totally agree as well. And this is totally something you see, fortunately, nowadays as well. Nowadays it's also or only quite about personalizing, whether it's ads or products or whatever. We just can't personalize our fucking shoes already. It is something that's not new, totally not, but it's totally interesting to see the change of having just mass products and really just have something to just really being personalized and just actually doing personalized ads, which will totally come more and more and more and more with the help of AI and AI. In German it's KI, in English it's AI, and also blockchain. You will totally see that there will be a lot more automation, there will be a lot more personalized ads and sales and whatsoever, which is great, because it has maybe worked to really just put out everything and use your whole money to just throw out your message to everybody, but it's not working anymore. We just really want personalized messages, personalized in terms of actually studying the people, initially knowing what they want, and not basically just putting everything out because you have the money, but actually just really targeting certain groups, which is basically what he is saying there. The thing is, there's a fucking book on next to my bed, quite, and this is basically telling the same shit as this is all about. And this book was quite 100 years before this book actually, which is interesting. The problem is, I do think that if I'm just getting it right, I'm very sorry if I'm getting it wrong, maybe I'm just really putting myself really into it with energy and everything I have, but if this is actually what I think it is, then I just really have to read this again because I don't know. I hope I've said something that's truthful. I don't quite know at the time. Because I think that they have quite always been target audiences, but it has never been as personalized as we have it now, I think. And this is quite okay, or seems to show me, okay, this is actually what has to be like it, or that it actually has to be like it. It's not about pleasing the public, but about swaying it. What actually swaying is? Sway. Move or cause to move slowly or rhythmically backwards and forwards or from side to side. Well, is it some kind of a dance? Maybe it is actually, but yeah. So it's not about pleasing the public, but about swaying it. There are some parts of propaganda that feel so prescient and so benefiting to the Trump's administration that you might think it was written today. The important thing for a statesman of our age is not so much to know how to please the public, but to know how to sway the public. In theory, this education might be done by means of learned pamphlets actually, explaining the intricacies of public questions. In actual fact, it can be done only by meeting the conditions of the public mind, by creating circumstances which set up trains of thought, by dramatizing personalities, by establishing contact with the group leaders who control the opinions of the publics. Which is basically the same thing as they were just giving an example for right before, which was actually the same thing that we were discussing, which was the whole Bacon thing. And it's totally the same thing what they are talking, or what he is actually talking about in here. Because in the very last sentence he says, by establishing contact with the group leaders who control the opinions of the public. So it's quite not about actually going to the public, but going to the people. You know what? Fucking shit. He's right. And a funny thing is, and this was actually something that I've heard from Gary Vee, it always is so great if just things connect. If you just have some dots in your fucking brain somewhere and they suddenly connect, and then something just lights up and you think like, yeah, makes sense. And the thing is, if I'm just reading it, or as I was just reading it, I've read, and I will recap again, by establishing contact with the group leaders who control the opinions of the publics. What are you thinking about now? I'll give you 1 second. That's it. No joke, but what I'm thinking is influencers and influencer marketing. And it totally makes sense that it is working. And I do not know why a lot of people don't use it, because we're actually going to the group leaders who control the opinions of the publics, or at least for some bigger groups. It doesn't have to be the whole public, but in general, you can just work with every single influencer out there, and actually, market to the whole publicity. But it is so interesting that you actually can see something that's written 100 fucking years, actually 90 years ago, which is actually true right now. Definitely. And I do think, the thing is, because I just was talking before about something that I wasn't quite sure about, Seth Godin, and This is Marketing, which is actually the book that's laying there, actually told about not actually personalizing your ads and your products and whatsoever, and not mass producing your whole shit and putting it out just because you can. The thing is, I initially then thought, okay, this is actually not quite the same as he is talking there, because he's actually talking about the masses. But he also talks about the group leaders, which basically means the leaders of certain groups, whether it's, I don't know what groups, the workers, whether it's the university students, whether it's the whatever. Everybody has a leader. And he's quite not quite talking about actually going to the masses or to public. It can be done only by meeting the conditions of the public mind, by creating circumstances which set up trains of thought, by dramatizing personalities, by establishing contact with the group leaders who control the opinions of the publics. I just really wanna, but I can't. Fuck. There I will just show you this one. Okay, don't show you this one because you actually can't see anything. I quite hope that I somehow managed to quite explain what is actually standing in this book that's there, because I'm quite not sure. He actually definitely is talking about personalizing it and not marketing it to every single person, and actually marketing it to the smallest viable market you can have. Basically the people you want to serve, because if you have a singular product, you should definitely let it fit to some people. And if it's one person, if it's two people actually, then it's also okay, because you definitely can make your product as expensive so that they actually will buy it because they want it, and they will also buy it, because they need it, they want it whatsoever, and you will still make your money. Basically, this is just a thought, but it's not about money all the fucking time. But there it is basically about mass marketing. But I quite have the feeling that he's actually not quite about, or talking about, actually going to the masses. I don't know if I've just lost something or haven't just recognized something, but I kind of have the feeling that he's actually about, first of all, going to the leaders of the public and just, working with them so that they actually, it's difficult. I do think that I do just have two certain stories, or two different stories, I think. Sorry for that. But I hope you've got something out of this. I hope it was quite interesting. It is fairly hard to read. It's very difficult to read, and a fairly difficultly written book or something. I don't know. But yeah, I wish you a wonderful... No, actually, the outro. The actual outro. This was it with the episode. I hope that I'm just, able to go to bed a little bit earlier today. I will just definitely upload the vlog, because the vlogs I'm making is totally great. Making the episodes is also totally great. But having both is totally great. And this is actually about going on stage. And I'm quite going on stage right now with the vlogs and actually showing, okay, I'm doing something, even though it might be... But yeah, I'll let it be it. People actually like to watch other people. This is actually why we actually talk. We really like to watch other people, and this is why everybody is always just watching if there is an accident, which is totally something that is quite hard to say, but it is what it is. We like to watch people, and therefore, at my point of view, and also at Gary Vee's point of view, therefore vlogs work, because we just like to watch people's life, what's going on with them, whatsoever, and in the long run, it is totally something great, because if you're rich someday, or famous someday, just having the really early videos on your channel is something that's gold. Really gold, because people will watch it and people will be so interested in it, how you actually did it, how you actually came to where you are right now. But yeah, I hope you get the best health, wealth, happiness, and success, especially happiness. But do not just forget about thinking your legacy and giving back to the people, because these two things are very fucking important. Maybe even one of the most important things. I don't know. I'll see you.